Hello, everybody. Welcome to Meritainment. I have Sonia Saund with me.
Thank you.
She's a real estate agent, ex-photographer. She used to run her own business before. She's an entrepreneur. Thank you for joining us on this podcast today.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here.
For sure, for sure. So we'll get started. I had a couple questions for you. You've had quite the entrepreneurial journey thus far, transitioning from photography to real estate. So just kind of want to get an idea of like what made you leave photography and, head into being a realtor and kind of how the transition was.
Pretty loaded question. I don't know how far you want to go back into like my career, but I actually wanted to get into real estate when I want to say 22 years old.
Okay.
So just to give you some context, I'm turning 34 this year. That was a long time ago. But when I brought the idea up to a very close family member of mine, they said like, no way in hell you're getting into real estate. Like I went to Wilfrid Laurier and I studied business there and I did the co-op program and it was like a big deal at that time. Getting into real estate right after you've done something so spectacular was just like a big no-no. And I immediately, I didn't think about it the next day. Fast forward, I think I got my license in 2021.
That was during COVID.
During COVID.
Yeah.
So again, didn't really think about it too much in those 10 years, but I did want to get into it at some point. I just didn't know when that was going to be. So when COVID hit, I was still running like the photography business. And I've skipped a bunch of things here, but I was running the photography business and I was doing really well. I was in the peak of my career, I think. But I had that opportunity to kind of sit down and really kind of reevaluate my life because I'm sure you remember they started shutting down all these small businesses in 2020. And it was nice because I was getting a break, but then it made me really think about what I wanted to do in the future. And I just couldn't see myself doing photography for that long. So I committed myself to I remember telling my dad, I was like, I'm going to write the exams. Like, I'm just going to go through the course. Like, it's online now. Like, why not? I'm just going to write them and then see what happens. And he was super excited because he tried writing them before.
Oh, no way. Okay.
Yeah. So my dad is a kitchen cabinet maker by trade, and he's been doing that for probably 40 plus years now. And, he knows a lot of the construction trade as well. He was in a position to get himself into opportunities where he was buying houses and trying to flip them, but he just never mastered it. And I was watching all of this happening and I was like, if I just get my license, I can help do some of this kind of stuff. So he tried to get the license himself. He was an entrepreneur at the time, didn't, make enough time to study and whatever the case may be. But when I told him I was going to write the exams, he was super excited. And
yeah, it's good to have supportive parents.
Yeah.
Because a lot of parents are, they're like, everyone's becoming a realtor right now, And
I didn't know that at that time. Yeah. I feel like I'm so behind with trends. I always hear about these things late, too late in the game. And when I didn't really tell anybody I was writing the exams or that I had signed up for them. So when I actually got my license, which I think was 8 months later, because I was still working, people were like, oh my God, everyone's getting into real estate. And then I started seeing things pop up.
Yeah.
And I was like, what did I do?
I mean, just to give everybody some context on how we met, I used to see you at a lot of weddings. So you shot a lot of weddings. You shot one of our good friends' weddings, Jag Binning.
Your wife was telling me that, and I was like, I don't think I shot her wedding, but I did shoot her engagement party. Something like that.
And we reached out to you originally when at my old firm for I think we needed headshots done.
Right.
We didn't end up using you. I think we did them on a phone or something. I can't even remember. But you weren't in real estate at that time. You weren't a realtor at that time. I think this was pre-COVID, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was pre-COVID because I was still doing a lot of stuff for corporate. Yeah, that's how we met, right? Through photography, and then. A lot of people that I've met now have been it's everything's through social somehow, right? Instagram, whatever. But this is organic.
Do you find that the skills that you attain from photography translate into real estate? Are there transferable skills?
Yeah. So a lot of people ask me that question and I get into this insanely long conversation about what I had done before photography, which was project management. Okay. So I think more than anything, that has helped me because a lot of the project management that I did was in conjunction with account management.
Okay.
Which if you talk to any project manager right now, that they're wearing two hats, especially if you're in a flatter organization. Just learning how to talk to people and learning how to manage people's personalities. Yeah. That was something I have always been good at. And if you look at a real estate transaction right now, if you look at what the crux of that transaction is, you're dealing with people. You're trying to manage their personalities and their expectations and
their emotions. Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they don't realize how emotional this transaction is. I've sat in a room where people have cried over this transaction, and it's like insane when you, not insane, but it's insane to be in that type of setting and try to like calm the situation if you don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I think some realtors don't understand that how emotional it can be for people,
Especially now.
especially now, and for like first-time home buyers who are getting into the market. And it's definitely a challenging market for a lot of people. Despite the fact that prices have gone down, it's still unaffordable for a lot of people. So, you know, it's a mix of emotions, and it's scary too at the same time, right? For a lot of people.
No, for sure. And I have conversations with people like even my age right now that are like, how am I ever going to get into this market on a single income? Because like not everyone's married, or, you know, they don't know if that's what they want in their life. And like, how are we going to do this by ourselves? You have to walk them through that, and you have to set up a plan for them. And people don't have the patience to be in this industry. And even in the last few years, I'm sure you've seen it too. A lot of people have left.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Right? They started when I started, or even before I started.
And a lot of them are part-time too, so.
Yeah, and I have beef with these part-timers. And when I got my license, it was probably September of 2021. And I was still doing photography at that point because I'm like, I have bills to pay. The first thing somebody said to me, I think 2 months into getting my license, was, you have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You need to put both feet into this. And I'm like, well, I can't give up my business. Like, that wasn't a part of the plan. And they're like, if you don't do this now, like, you're never going to do it. And you're going to be stuck, and you're going to be known as Sonia Saund, the photographer, and you're never going to be Sonia Saund, the realtor.
Yeah, because I'm sure you still get calls, or did get calls when you first went into real estate. Can you do my headshots? Can you shoot my wedding?
Yeah.
You know, people still probably thought you were a photographer at that time.
So I told everybody, and I had a decent following on Instagram, but I like put a blast out, and I emailed people just letting them know, like, I'm done as of January 1st, 2022, and that I would be referring them out to somebody else. And I shut down my account, like, completely botched it. I still had people messaging me like on my real estate account being like, what happened? Like, just in a crisis, like, where's your, like, why are you not doing this anymore? Like, you're a go-to. Because mind you, I've been doing it for a few years at that point. And I was like, I'm sorry, but like.
So your heart was never really in photography?
Photography was my passion.
Okay.
It started off when I was doing project management. I was working downtown. I got my first bonus when I was 20, I think it was like 24, and I got my first bonus. Like, I didn't know, I wasn't akin to like bonuses, had no idea how much they were supposed to be, but I think it was like a $2,000 bonus. And I was like, oh, what do I do with this? Like, now I have like extra money. I had just paid off my OSAP loans. I'm like, oh, I've always wanted a digital camera. Like, cool. I think I was in my spare time looking up cameras on Kijiji, because that was like the place to go at that time. We didn't have like Marketplace or whatever. And then I found a camera for $200. This guy was selling this like old Nikon. I think it was like a D70, from what I still have it. 3 lenses, a tripod, a camera bag. Like,
it's a pretty good deal.
Dude, $200. Like, and it, but mind you, it was an older camera, but I'm like, I'm sure he took care of it because he was a wedding photographer turned pilot.
Okay.
So I messaged him. He had posted it like, I don't know, it was like within the hour. I messaged him and I'm like, hey, like, I'll buy this. Like, tell me where you want me to meet you. He picked this random diner in the Junction. So I took one of my work friends with me because I'm like, people are still sketch, right?
Yeah.
And then I was expecting just to like do the trade and like leave. And my friend and I actually stayed for dinner, and the seller saw that we were staying for dinner, and he like pulled up a seat next to us.
Okay.
And for 2 hours, he was like he's like, oh, like, do you want to do this recreationally? Like, what's your aim here? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm just going to take pictures of flowers. Like, that was interesting to me at that time. And he was like, oh, like, do you know how to shoot in, it's called manual mode? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, don't you just click the button? Like, I'm, you know, so confused. And he started showing me these settings, and he's like, oh, you can like manipulate things to look a certain way. And I'm like, oh.
So he coached you on how to.
He sat there for 3 hours with us.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This random dude. And he's like, you know, if you really want to get into it, like, you can start shooting weddings or this or that. And I'm like, okay, like, everything was very overwhelming. But I went home that night, and I remember showing my parents. I was like, oh, look, like, I got a camera. And I think my mom was like, what are you going to do with a camera? Like, big whoop, right? You know how parents are.
Yeah. Brown parents.
Brown parents.
Yeah.
And I think my dad was very like, oh, cool. Like, and my mom was like, what? And I'm like, I'm like, I don't have many hobbies right now. So this is gonna be one of my hobbies. And then the next day I started Sonia Saund, which I'm sure you remember.
I remember, yeah, I remember the name.
Yeah. And then I started posting, I think the following day I went to like Scarborough Bluffs, which is like the spot. And I started posting pictures of like flowers and trees. And then people were like messaging me being like, oh my God.
Do my
So
wedding, do my kid's
Then
birthday.
I got like my friends were like, oh, I'm getting engaged. Like, can you shoot my party? And I'm like, ooh, people? Like, I don't take pictures of people. And then I started like YouTubing things. And then I hit the ceiling there because I'm like, there's nothing else I can learn because, you know, that kind of stuff can only teach you so much. You have to like go out and do it. And then I started taking a couple courses downtown after work. So I would do work, go to these classes downtown. I think I did like 2 or 3.
That's good though. So you invested in yourself to like improve your
Because I'm
photography
like,
skills.
if this is gonna be I don't do anything half-assed.
Okay.
Like if it's gonna be a hobby, like I'm gonna learn it properly. Then I hit the ceiling there, and then I remember quitting my job. It was a very abrupt, like I can't do this anymore. And I had just moved downtown, so I got an apartment with my friend downtown, thinking like, oh, moving downtown will motivate me to go to work. I didn't really know why I was so unhappy with my life at that point. And as soon as I moved in, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm sleeping in more than I normally would have if, you know, when I was in Brampton training it, like what's going on. And then I remember like sitting at my computer one day and I was, my boss, I still talk to my bosses, but they're going to laugh if they ever see this. I was editing photos at work and I'm like, I can't be here anymore. Like mentally, I'm checked out. And I gave my 2 weeks that week. And then my mom like lost it. She's like, you have rent to pay. Like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to become a photographer. Like
it's a lucrative career
so weird though,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Photography is a lucrative career. Like anything to do with like the wedding industry or.
but I didn't have any plans. That's the thing, right? Like
yeah.
when I look back on it now, I'm like, dude, so crazy. Like you're insane for doing that.
But I'm sure when you transition from photography to real estate, people said the same thing, right?
100%. And it's funny because the first job, I didn't have like gigs lined up or anything. I literally just quit. And I was like, the next week I was like, what did I do? So I was like, I need to get my foot in the door somehow. Like, I don't know what I'm doing with photography. And besides blogging all these things on Instagram, but my first gig was in real estate photography. So for 6 months, I did real estate photography.
Okay.
And I learned how to shoot houses and condos. And I did virtual tours, which are a pain in the ass. And I was making like $25,000 a year. So 6 months out of that year, you know, you're making nothing. And then I realized that I was an asset to their company. And then I left. I was like, this is too much. And then I reached out to a bunch of wedding photographers because I'm like, I really want to shoot weddings. And a lot of them got back to me because I said, you know, can I just intern with you? And they did get back to me, but one person took me seriously and gave me a shot. And then that's when everything just blew up after.
Nice.
Yeah, feels like it was a long time ago, but I think I was 25 or 26 at that time, which not that long ago. I mean, I'm a little older now, but not that long ago.
See, one thing that I've noticed about you is anytime you go into like a specific practice, whether it's photography or real estate, you usually invest in yourself and you usually find somebody you can learn from, like a mentor.
Yeah.
And I always talk about that, like in my other videos as well. Like I say, everybody should have a mentor. But at that time, like when I was younger, I didn't really think that was something that was needed, right? Just trying to figure things out, make mistakes. But I guess what made you want to go out and find somebody just to kind of teach you these things and not just kind of learn, make mistakes and figure things out on your own? And I'm sure you've done the same thing in real estate as well, right?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people let their pride get in the way and they want to do things on their own, and like, no knocking on them. It's just, if you want to do things more quickly, if you want to expedite the process and make connections, you know, having a mentor is super beneficial. And, you know, it's a two-sided thing, right? Like anytime I've had a mentor, you know, it's not that they're just giving me all their information and I'm just taking, like, obviously you're benefiting them too, right? Because you're helping them out. And I'm lucky to have had so many good mentors in my life, and with real estate as well. For the first months, I want to say 4 or 5 months, I did have somebody who had mentored one of my colleagues as well, and one of my friends who brought me into the brokerage. And he's the one who actually told me, like, you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like, you need to
Go all in.
yeah. So then he said, if you need to shadow somebody, like, let me know. And I'm sure he saw something in me. And for 4 or 5 months, I was literally following him around like every day and helping write up the offers. And it just, if you do all that small stuff first, it's not small stuff later. It's a lot of like, it turns into big things, right?
Yeah.
Especially this paperwork stuff. Like, if you learn that like right away, like, you're good. But I was put in situations that were super tough really early on. And I think that helped, with my career now.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, you're a top producer at your brokerage.
Yeah.
And
I guess I should put that in my profile.
I mean, I guess you could. Number one at Century 21, correct? You're Century 20. Well, you're not number one.
No, I'm not number one. I think it was in like the top 10.
Yeah,
so
yeah. But
lucky
sometimes realtors will be like number one.
Yeah, like you're in the top 1% or whatever. Yeah.
But
I had a good year last year, which was my second year of real estate.
There's a lot of real estate agents who have been with their brokerages for quite some time and don't have that privilege, I guess, of making like top 5, top 10, who have been in the industry much longer than you have, for example, right? So I guess like and this is kind of like a cliche question, but like what's allowed you to, progress and be one of the top realtors at your brokerage? What advice would you have for someone who wants to attain those goals,
So this is like, there's a lot of different factors at play. I think you have to have this like relentlessness.
Okay.
I think you already know the type of person that I am. If I want something, I am going to get it.
You don't know how to say no.
No.
Yeah,
if somebody tells me no, I'm going to find somebody that tells me yes. And I get this from my dad. My dad's been an entrepreneur his entire life. He cannot work for anybody. I'm pretty sure I'm the same way. Like, we're very stubborn in that sense.
You guys bump heads?
Oh, yeah. All the time. All the time. But I think, like, at the end of the day, we know that we're the same, and that's why. But he's the only person that really, like, truly, if I told him tomorrow that I was going to become a mortgage broker, he'd be like, do it.
Do it, yeah.
You know what I mean? And you need people like that in your life. But the relentlessness, like, that's something for sure that I think somebody has to have in this business. But also the networking. Like, there's so many clients of mine from the photography field that have come to me for real estate. The first deal that I did in real estate was from an Instagram message.
Okay. From
one of my friends in high school who we didn't chill all the time. Like, we didn't hang out regularly, but, we knew of each other. I was always like, I was a social butterfly. So I knew everybody and I talked to everybody. But he messaged me. And I think the last time I saw him was I did an engagement shoot for him and his wife. And then like 5-6 years later, he's like, hey, I want to buy a condo. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, okay. And he's like, there's a bunch on the market. What do you want? And I think I sent him a couple and he goes, okay, cool. I want that one. And this guy's in the mortgage field. So he was very like just cutthroat about things in a good way. And I'm like, okay, cool. Can we set up a showing? Like, I'll show you tomorrow. And he goes, no, I don't need to do a showing. And I'm like, dude, just let me like show this condo to you. You know what I mean? Like, I want to take you through this entire process. So I dragged him out and we were up against, he wanted to put in an offer that night and it was offer night. And I think we outbid 13 people.
Nice.
Yeah. One of them was one of my colleagues. And he was like, wicked, like, thank you so much. And he didn't know that he was the first deal for me until I told him after. So again, networking is huge and people don't think that your network can take you places, but what's that saying?
Your network is your net worth.
That's it. Yeah. And it's 100% true.
It is. Yeah.
Like,
I think business, like in any industry, it's about relationships. It's about how you treat people. Because a lot of people, they
remember things, especially how you treat them.
Yeah, a lot of people have this mentality like be a shark. Yeah, you can, like, competition's important, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you want to treat people with respect. Treat people how you want to be treated at the end of the day, right? And the only way you can develop relationships is, in my opinion, is through just respect, connecting with people,
And just be a good person, right? Like, don't screw people over.
It's not hard. It's actually harder. It's harder to be a dick.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people have known me from, high school or photography or whatever the case may be, I still keep in contact with them because I genuinely want to know what's going on in your life, right? And I think people, they recognize that. You're not just,
Yeah.
just there, scoping people out, and I don't know, but network's huge for sure. And you have to believe in yourself, like as cliche as that sounds. If you don't believe that you are meant to be in this space, then you won't last. Because if you don't believe in yourself, then why would other people?
Yeah, very true.
Right? And they can smell that on you. That's like the confidence factor. And you can work on building your confidence. That's no problem. But if you are faking that all of your life, people will also know that too.
Yeah, I think I heard this one quote the other day, and I'm big into quotes. You probably know that.
So am I.
I posted on my Instagram. Yeah, you do too. Like
Yeah,
every day in the morning, I see like your
every
little.
morning. Yeah.
I'm like, she's referring to someone here.
Was it subtweeting or?
Yeah. So like this lady said, people don't have to love you. They don't have to like you. They don't have to respect you. But you better love the person that you see in the mirror, right? And it's true at the end of the day, because no matter what you do, some people are not going to like you. They're not going to respect you. A lot of people are not going to love you. So, but you have to obviously, again, love yourself, right?
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And there was another quote that has been recycled so many times, and it's, you talk to yourself more than anybody, in this world. So make sure you're saying good things. And like, if you're listening to that internal dialogue and you're really listening to what you're saying to yourself, there's a lot of people that are constantly doubting themselves. Constantly. They might not outwardly say it, but it's in there.
I think everybody doubts themselves.
For sure.
Yeah.
But, what are the 90% of thoughts that are going on up here? Is it constantly like, oh, you can't do this? Because my mind's not like that, but I'm sure other people's minds are. And that's huge. And I never thought about it that way until somebody told me, like, a lot of people are super vulnerable, right? Like they tell you, like, I feel like I can't do this. And in my mind, that's like insane. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, if you really want to do something, you can do it. But then somebody else told me, like, Sonia, like, like people aren't built like you, right? And I'm like, to me, I'm like,
I think people also have a fear of failure, right?
Yeah.
They're scared that if they do something, they're going to fail. And then, at the end of the day.
But it's like, how many times have you failed?
Many times.
Right?
Yeah.
And how
Early
low,
on, though. Early on,
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're still failing in little ways now, it's still, in my mind, that's still good because you're learning something. You don't have to fail hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I take precautions not to fail hard now. Like I talk to the right people before making certain decisions,
Yeah.
because I can't risk it, right? But obviously there's little failures that are still happening
100%.
within your life. And that needs to happen. Otherwise, like, what is life? Life is always like this.
No, it's true.
So
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
I find that in this market, I'm seeing, unfortunately, a lot of realtors leave the industry. Even realtors that were like full time in the industry.
Oh, you're seeing a lot of full timers leave too?
I mean, like
they're just like mad at the new guys.
Full time as in they were working in other jobs before, and the market went hot like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of rode the wave, and now it's kind of obviously dipped. A lot of individuals who were also in pre-construction, because pre-construction has slowed down.
Yeah.
I mean, people are scared, right? The rates are super high. What if they don't go down the next 3 to 4 years?
Yeah, what's going to happen?
So I guess like people that are thinking of leaving the industry right now, like I guess what advice would you have for them, right, not to leave the industry? Because a lot of them obviously have bills to pay, and they're trying to kind of look out for their own financial well-being.
I mean, one of my friends, she started probably before I did. And I remember because I did her branding shoot for her. She was kind of not leaving, but she was contemplating like, okay, what do I do now? Because I'm not making the money that I need to make to sustain my life. And I think she ended up getting a full-time job not back at her old work, but, in that same kind of realm. But she's still, kind of putting the real estate thing out there and trying to forefront that as much as possible. I was thinking about leaving last year. So it's, again, no matter how confident you are, you still have those doubts. And I remember January of last year, I was like looking up jobs, like leasing jobs, because I'm like, oh, like I'm good at leasing, like maybe I can do this. And I remember interviewing with this company who was going to hire you full time, and you would, it was still commission based, but you were guaranteed that commission as long as you hit those targets. And I went through the interview. They offered me a job, and I talked to the same friend, and she goes, dude, you can do like 2 leases in a month and still make good money on your own terms. Why would you kill yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, she's right. So I wish she took my advice on this, but I'm seeing a lot of people, take on a different job, and they're kind of putting this as a part-time thing, which I don't recommend unless you're doing it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's small things that you can do to get to the bigger items.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right? And I had to do that in my first year. I was leasing, I was taking on all these things that other people didn't want because I was looking at numbers. How much do I have to make this month in order to meet my target? How am I going to get there? And if you don't want to put in that work to stay full time, then you should just leave.
Do you have like a vision board that you keep at home? 'Cause I see a lot of people, what they do is like right beside their bed, they'll have like, their goals for 2024, like what commission they're hoping to reach. So I feel like that's, something that they think that they can manifest it if they wake up to it every morning. So I see a lot of people doing these vision boards or these journals.
It's funny because I've never been that person.
Okay.
Like everyone's always like, oh, like, do this gratitude journal thing, or like write down I have like a series of notes in my phone. There's probably like over 300 notes. Not a single note about what, my goals are for this year. I used to do that a lot. But because there's so much uncertainty, I think I just stopped, and I should probably do this again. But I'll look back to see what my goal was for last year, because I surpassed anything that I could have ever imagined.
I used to put in notes on my iPhone.
Yeah, and I feel like I did the same thing too. But recently, like I haven't been, everything that's in my mind, I kind of just, I don't know. I feel like I don't need to write it down. I just know what I want to accomplish. I am a big list, I make a lot of lists.
Okay.
So task related things, I do a lot of that. I don't know if that counts, but
no, it's same thing. Yeah.
But I should probably do more of that.
One of the main reasons I wanted to have you on today, we've only done about 2 of these episodes so far.
I'm really surprised.
Yeah, just finding the time in our industry, it's so hard to find the time because
for sure.
it's nonstop, and then even after deals close, there's still pending issues. But back to my original question was, you're obviously an entrepreneur, you're a real estate investor as well. And you made a significant career change because you weren't small time in photography. You were pretty big time. I used to see you at weddings, shooting people's, ceremonies and receptions.
We used to travel a lot too. It was crazy.
I'm sure, yeah, because you had a name, right?
But now you
Shutter Saund, yeah. And I remember the name. But I guess anybody looking to make that career leap, whether it's I guess going into real estate or another avenue, what genuine advice would you have for them in doing that? Because most people are scared to make that jump, right? And I've done it before. I was in engineering before I decided to go into law, right? Initially. So I guess what advice would you have for them just so they can kind of learn from your experience and they don't have to reinvent the wheel?
Yeah, if I could go back, I would have a whole plan of things, because I've never done anything. Everything's been on a whim for me. I've never really done anything where I'm I have a 5-year plan for this, right? So always have a plan. But I think the biggest thing is just going with your gut.
Okay.
My gut has proven to be everything for me. I stick by what my gut is telling me to do. And if you feel like you should be somewhere in life, then
is it a 100% accuracy rate? The gut?
In that moment, yes.
Okay.
You obviously have buyer's remorse or whatever it is, the days after. But if you're going to do something, make sure you're committed to it, because, if you make that leap and you make those decisions, you need to be committed to, it coming into fruition. If you want to quit next week, it's not an option. So have that plan in place and make sure you give yourself at least 6 months, a year. Or in real estate, they tell you, you're not going to make it until you've passed this 5-year mark. I said to myself, I'm going to do it in 2, I'm going to, again, I didn't write it down, but I said to myself, like, by the end of year 2, I'm going to make X amount of money.
Okay.
Or whatever it is. I'm going to do this amount of sales or whatever it was. I had like a target in mind. I should have written it down, but
And you hit that target.
yeah.
Nice.
I passed it.
Okay, so you exceeded it.
Yeah.
So if I were to summarize what you just told me, have a plan, trust your gut, believe in yourself, right?
Yeah. I mean, those are the 2-3 big things.
And don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah. Again. And with failure, like, again, what we just talked about, you can minimize those failures if you have the right people with you, right? And I've been lucky to have people to ask questions and have those mentors, and just, it's the right people that you need by your side. And if it feels like it's the wrong person, move on.
Oh yeah, 100%. You
Move
are
on.
who you're
Trust your
surrounding
gut on
yourself
that one, too.
Yeah, 100%.
So-
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I hope the viewers benefited from this video. We'll share your details in the video below as well.
Thank you.
And thank you again for
Thanks so much for having me.
For sure.
Flew by.